And we are 89 inches by 103. And how do we make this quilt? Well, my friends, we're doing that right now. So we are laying out our Highland Cow blocks. And one of the major things we have to do with any quilt is to audition the fabric. So when we're looking at the fabric, if y'all walk around with me here, we're looking for making some fabrics blendable with our Highland Cow. So the thought process is what goes, what doesn't go, and I think we're narrowing it down. What do you think? Hit that comment button. What colors would you use? Would you add more of? I want to know your thoughts as we get really in gear making our Highland Cow quilt. And we are trimming our boots, my friends. And if you haven't added it to your collection yet, we have a 6-inch ruler by 24 inches, so 6 inch by 2 feet, and it works wonderful when you're cutting across a yard of fabric. So we have folded it in half just like it comes on the bolt, put our ruler up, we're lining up lines, my friends. We got to make sure it stays put, and then we're using our rotary blade and turning it off. And we are putting strips around our first largest focal block. Love this. All right, so what we have done is we have done a brief pattern on graph paper, then laid it out on the bed and went crazy, my friends. We have redesigned, rethought 3 pictures right up there on the pillow when you turn it down, coming into 2 lovelies, and then coming with the 4 patches with this fabric over here on the left, and this brown border around here. So currently my question is, this is dark, this would look great dark, but since I'm adding so much to it and we're mixing it up with different colors, different blocks, I think what we're doing is we're white in the middle, drawing it dark, and then getting lighter as we go out with all of the different colors. So I'm happy with this, and now we're going to go ahead and sew on our 1.5 inch strips to our 6 inch of our boots, which turns out to be 5.5 inch. Then of course we've got our 2.5 inch layer and our center focal block. So we are building out on this and redoing and recalculating as we go. And my friends, I hope you are loving this as much as I am. I'm so excited. Now, my friends, we're going to sit down and sew some 9 patches. So we've got this one in the center, we've got this one in the center, and that I think is going to look absolutely wonderful. So let's start sewing. And we have our 2 borders sewn on, the brown, the boots, the brown, and then our panel. All right, so we have our 3 pieces together. We're going to run over to the ironing board and press them, and then we can slice them up and make our 9 patches. But first, I might just grab my next stack and stick them under the sewing machine as well. And we're making sure we're all even. And we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam, adding our 3rd strip to our first 2. And again, we're making 9 patch blocks. I'm so loving these fabrics. What incredibly beautiful fabric this is. And we are measuring out our 3-inch strips, and we're going to be using this in our 9 patch as well. Oh, and it feels beautiful using a rotary blade that cuts. That's it. So what do you think, my friends? Do you like the sewing, or do you like the eye candy, or do you like the process, or the education and tutorial? Let me know. Hit that comment button. I want to know your thoughts. And we are pressing these to where our seams go towards the darker fabric. And if we do that, we'll always have our seams matching and nesting together instead of bulking up. Pressing our seams towards the darker fabric. And because we are doing 9 patches, that means they're going to fit perfectly. They'll nest. And we are always pressing towards the darker fabric. That way on a 9-patch block, our blocks match together, fit together perfectly. And now it's time to cut out our 3-inch strips to make our 9 patches. So I'm going to lay these out, but I'm not letting the seams lay on the same area. So I'm kind of stacking them out so I can cut them all at once. So this is, I think I've got 4 strips in front of me. And it takes a little bit longer to lay them out, but then I only have less cuts to make because I'm making 4 at one time and I'm not going over the seams. So I'm never going over more than, what is that, 3 layers, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the trick to cutting, my friends, is making sure that we are measuring twice, cutting once. So be real certain where your ruler is, hold it down, and then re-verify where your ruler is. And we want to line it up on a couple of different strips at the same time. Okay. And hold it tightly with your hand. Your fingers are back from that blade. And voila! Now we're ready to measure the 3-inch. It's always easiest if we start out with a flat line. Line up as many lines at one time as we can. And slice across. All right, so this pattern is all cut out for my 3 patches, and I like to lay them together so I can play with them a little bit, decide which I want where, how I want where, and then we're going to carry these over to the sewing machine and put them together. I am so excited. Woohoo! I can't wait to see these complete. Bet you can't either. beautiful. Oh, I love this. What do you think, my friends? I love this. Hit that subscribe button. We're making 9 patches. Okay, my friends, so here is my 9-patch Highland Cow quilt, and I am thinking it is too busy. So I've thrown out a few fabrics on the bed. I'm thinking about putting border in there in between my brown and my blocks, and was playing with these other colors. I don't know how to give it some eye rest, but I'm just feeling chaos instead of feeling comfort with this one. So again, work in progress, and that's what happens oftentimes, my friends, when we don't have a pattern to go off of, or with our pattern, we use too many patterns within our pattern. So I'm going to make this border, maybe a 3.5 inch, maybe a 4 inch, and go right here in between my brown and my pieces, giving us a little bit more comfort in between the activity of my boots and the activity of my blocks. That being said, instead of doing all 9 patches, I was looking at throwing some of these solids in. So hit that comment button, help me out. What do you think? What would you do on your quilt? We've thrown in some solids, and I'm still feeling too much chaos. All right, my friends, so we have sewn these together, and instead of making 9 patches, we're going to be placing them on the bottom to finish up the bottom row, and then we're looking at borders. So we're trying, we were going to do some in this, but we've got very little of our boot fabric left. So we will be taking our fabric and making beautiful borders with the browns. We're going to see if we can't get a thin line of our boot in here, and then we're going to be sewing that together. So what we have done is really magnificent. We've got our 9 patches next to our cows. We have a patch on the bottom of them, a patch on the top of them. Now we're going to be finishing it off with the row across the bottom, and then going around the entire quilt with our borders. Again, we're going to be measuring this next, but we've got some more yardage of the brown, so we're going to make this effect around the edge and bottom and top of the quilt. So I am feeling really great. We've got to figure out some borders in between because we want the layover of the pillow, but I am really pumped on how this is turning out. I hope you are too. Back to the sewing machine. Pinning our seams together for our next row to make sure everything lines up perfectly, because when you're matching the same size to the same size, you want to make sure that it's perfectly aligned. And when you have so much bulk on a quilt and you're adding a pieced block, it's important to have those extra hands, and those extra hands are pins. Be precise now, and you'll be happier later. And when needed, my friend, our old friend the seam ripper comes out. And those pens are our fingers, my friends. And you can't get that many fingers, that many hands on a quilt as you can these pens. So we are continuing to pin up all of the seams. And then with confidence, we're going to zip it across, sew it up, and be ready for the outside borders. I am so excited. So very, very much loving this quilt. What do you think? Hit that comment button. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from you. And we are working today on our beautiful Husqvarna Viking. It purrs like a kitten, and when it doesn't, it's just time for a little pampering, and then it purrs again. And we are using some really nice pens. They're very long, very thin, very versatile. It helps to add that to your collection, to your sewing, your quilting, because again, pens are like fingers holding things together and making us feel really, really accomplished about our project. And as you can see, my friends, lighting is very important when you're quilting. If you have to strain your eyes to see, then you need more lighting. And we're sewing our rows together for our strips to go around for our borders. beautiful. Beautiful borders. And I always press on the cotton setting at the hottest setting with steam. Steam makes your work go by so much easier. And this time I'll just have to be careful with the seams because this is the smaller piece and it's so bulky that I have to have a little bit of it tamed. Pulling it all up to fit under the arm of the sewing machine and in the lap as you sew. my friends, so we have put the first row of border on both sides of the Highland Cow. And now we're going to join together our next two borders, the beige and the brown, and add them at the same time to the top and add them to the same time to the bottom. That saves having to work that bulk while I add those on. Beautiful. Perfect. Beautiful. And getting organized so you're not twerking or pulling is very important, my friends. So we're taking our two bindings that we've sewn together to go on to the bottom, and we're now putting it on the bottom. Borders, my friends, not bindings. We're putting two of our borders, which is the brown and the light cream, and we're putting it on the bottom of the quilt. And we're sewing that on right now. And if we take a look at the top of the quilt, we already have that on. So we're adding that now to the bottom of the quilt. And I always prefer it when I can have our seams up. That way it's easier to keep track of them. But as I sew, my friends, I want you to look back at the previous video and you see that I rub on the border when the border is on top and the seams are on the bottom, which I don't prefer doing, but sometimes it's just easier. You rub on that fabric, and if you have it well pressed, well ironed, you are going to feel how smooth it is when it goes the right direction, so that you can sew so much easier and with much more confidence when you have those rows pressed very, very well. My friends, we could very well use pins at this stage, but as you see, I'm going about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches, maybe 1 inch, and then I'm making sure I'm lined up. Remember my pins, my friends. I consider my pins my extra fingers. Can I easily use my 2 hands to sew this, or would it be more accurate if I used more fingers, meaning pins? And right now I'm opting to sew it because look. I have a straight, unseamed border going against borders. My borders are up, meaning my seams are up, and it's going against a flat border. If it were block border, if it were pieces, I'd want to line those pieces up and I'd need my pins. So think seams, think pins. Think no seams or seams up. Not as much need for the extra fingers, meaning extra pins. That's my thoughts. Hit the comment. Let me know what works best for you and what you prefer. I want to hear it, so hit that comment button and let me know, my friends. I am so excited about this quilt. I hope you are too. Okay, my friends, so what we have done is we've put 2 borders on this side, 1 border on this side. So now we always want the corners to match up. So our next one is going to be this color here, but we can go ahead and attach 2 of them at the same time. So I'm going to cut out the borders out of this fabric and the borders out of this fabric, put them together, sew them together next. And much larger outside border. All right, I'm so excited, and we're going to continue to sew this, and then we'll sew the opposite side exactly the same, and then we'll sew them onto the quilt, and then do the one final border on the opposite 2 sides, which happen to be the top and the bottom. So that's an easy way, my friends, to add the borders and not have them looking funny at the corners, because you're adding them 1 or 2 at a time so that they always come together correctly. So each one matches, one doesn't overlay the others. What do I mean overlay the others? What I mean is that these 2 come together. Now by putting this one on, it's going to come together. And we're putting this one on the outside over here so that the next one up here is going to be this one as well. And they don't overlap. They come together just perfectly on the corners. And there are no seams on these 2 strips. Now, Wendy, there's always a strip because width of fabric is width of fabric. Well, my friends, we just happen to luck out and have it as wide back that we're using here. And the wide back fabric allows us not to have seams. Now, there is no harm in a seam. You can use regularly 38 to 42 inch wide and just sew 2 pieces together, straight across or triangle shape, slanted. Either way you want. We just happen to luck out and this color be both in long form. And my friends, we are coming down to the finish line where we'll take it to the ironing board and press it. But I am so excited about this quilt. We have 3 borders on 3 of the sides now, and we're coming into the finish line, putting it on the last border onto the bottom of our quilt. So I am so excited about this, and it is looking great. The colors blend so well. Very, very happy how this is coming together. What do you think? Hit the comment button below. Let me know your thoughts. And have you ever had a Highland Cow quilt or considered it? Or what would you like your next project to be or my next project to be? This is such a beautiful quilt, but my friends, when you break it down into steps, as we have done today, I hope you will find that this is something that you can use in your repertoire. Put in your 9-patch blocks based on the size of your pre-cut panels. Spread them out in your quilt, lay them out on a bed, and add borders to complete your finished size to frame in your quilting, frame in your blocks, and make a beautiful finished quilt. And you choose what size you make it. And I'm using the cotton setting on my Tefal iron. And I love this because it has a large reservoir for the water. It's very easy to use, very easy to fill, and it is hot and so very, very friendly to my pressing and ironing. And anytime you put water, you have steam in your iron on the hottest setting, and you're only ironing cotton, it works so much quicker, so much better with that steam. And my friends, my Highland Cow quilt is complete. I am so excited about this. I apologize I don't have it too many arms to hold it up as I should, but we can see that it is looking absolutely gorgeous. What do you think? Hit that comment button. I want to know your thoughts. But there we are for a 103 long quilt. Oh, I love this.